Okay, good morning, everybody. It's absolutely wonderful to be here. I've only just joined the ADHD Foundation. This is one of my first co-productions with the Witherslack group, although the foundation has a long history of collaborating with the Witherslack group. I first became aware of Witherslack as a parent of neurodivergent children when I attended as a parent and carer sessions, and then latterly, when I worked in schools, I attended as a professional, and now here I am, my very first session presenting for you. So I couldn't be more delighted to be here. We've got a really interesting timetable for you today. So I'm going to be talking about neurodiversity and technology, the tools for success. So let's get going. The idea is that I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes, and then you can put any questions that you've got as we go along. You can pop those into the chat, and there'll be time for that Q&A at the end. Okay, so off we go. So first of all, I'm going to touch a little bit about what is neurodiversity. So the talk today is about neurodiversity and assistive technology. So first of all, what is neurodiversity? Now, many of you will be well aware of neurodiversity, being parents of neurodivergent children or even neurodivergent yourself. However, some of you might be on a diagnostic pathway with your child, so you might not have a massive amount of background knowledge. So the neurodiversity umbrella that we have here, you can see all the different conditions. Now, some of this wording I'm not particularly happy with. We have lots of words like disorders and deficits in here. Here at the ADHD Foundation, we prefer a more strength-based approach. So you can see that we have autistic spectrum disorder. I prefer autistic spectrum condition, that sort of thing. I myself am autistic, and I also have combined type ADHD, and I live in a fully neurodivergent family. So I'm going to be doing some examples today from things that have helped me, and also things that we use every day in our home. So there's all these different types of neurodiversity. One of the common threads of neurodiversity is executive dysfunction. Now, on the screen here, I've put up all the different types of executive function, and a lot of neurodiverse individuals will suffer with some of this dysfunction. So they will struggle with some of these more than others. Now, every human alive has a completely unique executive function profile. However, neurodivergent individuals may well have what's called a spiky profile, where they're excellent at one of these and really not so great at others. So there's many of them that you may associate with particular neurodivergencies. For example, flexibility being not too flexible can be a problem for autistic neurodivergent individuals. You might find that planning and organization you might struggle with if you have ADHD or if you're dyslexic, for example. So not all neurodivergent people will struggle with all of these, but there is this common thread of executive dysfunction within all neurodivergencies. Technology can help with many of these areas. One of the things that we like to talk about is having a second brain. If you can't rely on your brain to manage all these different things for you, to juggle all these balls at once, then what you can do is you can use some external support to externalize these executive functions. So whether it's a to-do list or whether it's reminders on your phone, that's we can get some very high-tech solutions that I'm going to talk about today. Anxiety can also be a common thread amongst a lot of neurodivergent young people and children. So that's something I'm going to touch on as well. So I'm going to give lots of different examples within the talk today of things that you may find useful. Now, a lot of these particular supports that we're going to be talking about are useful to all sorts of people. They might be useful across the board, but they are essential for neurodiverse individuals. So everybody might find them helpful and useful. However, some neurodivergent individuals may find them essential and really struggle without these supports. So that's a very quick background on some neurodiversity. And now we're going to talk about what is assistive technology. So the DFE, the Department for Education, the UK government, defines assistive technology as an umbrella term that can, in the broadest sense, include any device, any software or system that's used to support an individual who has some form of special educational need, disability or impairment. So that's the official definition. So it can be a software, it can be a system, or it can be a physical device. So I'm going to touch on all of these today. But I like to think of assistive technology being useful for the 4 C's. So it can either help you with your communication, it can help you with collaboration, that's working with others. It can help you with critical thinking and problem solving, or it can help you with your creativity. So they are my 4 C's for assistive technology: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. So assistive technology, there's 3 sort of strands here, and I'm going to go through each one in turn in the rest of the presentation. So our first one is integrated assistive technology. So integrated assistive technology is built in. So these are tools that exist in software and hardware that you already have. You may not necessarily be aware that you have these supports already in place. So I'm going to talk you through some of the built-in tools that you may have access to already. The second tier is additional. So we have our integrated tools and our additional tools. So the additional tools could be apps or websites, things like this that are freely available to all. So I'm going to cover all sorts of these in the additional section later on, and that will show us lots of different things that are free to use for anybody. So they are open to anyone to use. And then the final tier is what I've called specialist. Now, specialist assistive technology is usually paid, but that also means that it is usually highly focused on a particular need or a particular condition. So some of these specialist items can be very expensive, and I'll talk about those more as we go along. But if you are in need of these specialist items, there are usually funding streams available depending on where you live and you know what age and stage your child is at. So they are the 3 stages: integrated, additional, and specialist. So we're going to go through each of those in turn. So we're going to look first at our integrated. So these are our built-in accessibility tools. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Windows-based software to begin with, but don't panic if you are an Apple user, we will get to that shortly. So within Windows Edge browser, so the Edge browser that comes within Windows, you have 2 brilliant functions that you may not be aware of. The first one is read aloud, and the second one is immersive reader. So I'm going to show you these now. And what I would suggest is, if you are a Windows user or have access to a Windows computer, that you go and have a play with these at some point, maybe later tonight, because they really are very exciting. So the first one is the read aloud section. So read aloud here, if you type in any sort of address, so this is our ADHD Foundation, and to the right hand side here we have this little A with a little sort of speech marks on it, and that is the read aloud function, and that will read any particular website, whatever you've got on screen at the time, that will read it out to you. If you're looking within a PDF, this is the toolbox of a PDF, we then have that same A with a little radiating lines coming off it. So we can use this read aloud function in PDFs as well, and this is super handy. So what does it actually do? Well, once you click that button, that little A with the little lines coming off it, we then get a list of voice options. Now, you might be thinking that these sort of text-to-speech apps are very clunky, but the ones that are integrated within Microsoft are actually quite sophisticated. So you have a choice of different speakers. Now, when you click on that downward link, there are all these different ones, and I would suggest that you use the ones that have the brackets natural after them. So here we've got Libby, Maisie, Ryan, Sonia, all with the word natural in brackets. So that means it is a really authentic voice, and it doesn't sound robotic at all. So please do go and have a play with these. So Maisie and Thomas, for example, are young children's voices. So if you have a primary school age child who wants to hear something read to them in a voice more similar to their own, then you can use these younger voices. So have a play with those, they're quite interesting. So those are the English language ones. If you are Irish, you can have English, but read to you in an Irish accent. I personally love to hear the Irish accent, so I quite often choose either Connor or Emily to read my text out for me, because I think it's just lovely to listen to. So you have those options for Irish accents if you wish, but it's not just accents. So here we have Microsoft Colm and Microsoft Orla, and they will read it to you in Irish, so in that Gaelic language, and it reads it out. So even though the language on screen may be English, it will be read out in Irish to you, and you can choose there a male or female voice. We also have Aled and Nia, who are Welsh speakers, so that will be read out to you in your Welsh native language. When you get onto this particular drop down of these settings, there are so many different voices that you can choose and so many different languages. So that web page can be translated into whatever language you can speak. I mean, I'm not sure how many languages there are globally, but there's certainly plenty of options down there to choose from. So what does that actually look like? Well, once you have clicked and selected your voice, you can choose the speed that you want them to read out. And as it's going along, what happens is the line that it's reading is highlighted here. This is highlighted in blue. And the word that's currently being read is here in yellow. So as it goes along, that little yellow will jump from of ADHD information as it goes along. So you can follow along quite easily where it's actually reading. So this can be really helpful for all sorts of different neurodivergent individuals. So that is our read aloud function in Windows Edge browser. They also have the immersive reader. Now, if we look down here, so that was our read aloud function. And then next, so this is in the little bar where you type your web address in, we have this icon here. And this is the immersive reader. Now, this isn't available on all websites, but where it is, it's really useful. So in this immersive reader here, if we take now, I was doing some research for this particular presentation. So I was looking at some research material, and here is something that I looked at from the University of Bath. And there's all sorts of different things on this page. We've got lots of titles, subtitles, links to click, all sorts of things to do. If I toggle on that immersive reader function, it gets rid of all of that visual clutter, and it gives me just the information that I need. So here is the immersive reader, and it's put it on a cream background with black text. If I want to change any of that, I can go to the top of the screen, and we have here the text preferences. So we've still got that option to read aloud, but then we have the text preferences here. So we can change the size of the text, we can add different spacing, we can make it further apart, we can choose 3 dyslexia friendly fonts, we can change how wide we want it. And down here, and if you scroll down, there's tons of different colors. So if you find you have visual stress, so if you have Erlen syndrome, for example, you may want to change the particular background color to something more contrast or a lower contrast, or these different colored areas here. We also can use a thing called the line focus. So that was within our text preferences. And now here we've got our reading preferences. So here we can use this function called line focus, and it helps by putting a darker overlay over most of the screen and just then using a highlight function along the middle. So you can focus on 1 or 3 or 5 lines at a time. Here I've chosen 3, so it's going to give me 3 different lines to focus on. And then as we move down and scroll, it will then keep that my focus on that particular area. So on all these reading functions, we can not only choose our voice, like I previously said, but we can also say whether you want it slow or fast. Now, I have ADHD and I like things fast, so I would usually scroll it right up to high speed. Other people who process auditory things more slowly may want a slower pace on their text to speech. So that is our Windows Edge browser. Now, other browsers do not have this built in, but you can use a plugin or an extension. So if you use Chrome, for example, there are free Chrome extensions and plugins that you can do to add them in. There are plenty of paid ones as well. So if you try some of the ones that are free and see if they are good enough for you, but there are paid options as well. So if you are wanting to talk out loud and have your words appear on the screen, that's what we call speech to text. And I'm going to talk about 2 common word processors now, so Word and Google Docs. So within Word, so this is just the top bar that you'd see on a Word document, and we're on the home area. And if we go over to this side, you can see that we've got the dictate function. So if you click that dictate button there, you can then start talking and it will type out what you are saying. However, if you look at that dictate button, there is a little down arrow. So if you click dictate, it will start typing whatever it is you're saying. But if you click that little down button, we have the option to either dictate or to transcribe. So if we choose transcribe, I'll pop that up now. You get oh, hang on, my lights have gone on. Let me just give a wave. There we go, that should be better. So you have the option then to do a transcription, which will detect different speakers. So for example, if you have 2 or 3 people having a conversation, it will separate the text from each speaker. So this is really, really useful. So once you have got all that information down on your piece of paper, so to speak, you then have the option, if we go into the review settings over here, there's then our friendly read aloud button, so we can have that read back to us. So within Word, it will type what we say, and then we can have Word read it back to us, again, using all those different voices that we had before. We can also go into Google Docs. So in Google Docs, it's not on that first top header strip. So you would start off over here, but actually we need to go to Tools. So you'd go to Tools and then scroll down to Voice Typing. So once you've hit voice typing, you then get this little pop-up thing, which you would press and click, and then it would speak. So once you press it, it will then you'll be dictating, and it will transfer all of your speech onto the page. Now, if you look at the top here, depending on how you have your settings in Google, at the moment this is English US. So if we use that drop down, we can change it to the United Kingdom. So that will give you colour with a U in it, for example, as opposed to colour without if it's set to United States. So that's something just to be aware of. So once you click it, it does this sort of animation where it sends ripples out, and the icon itself goes red to tell you that it's listening. It will then type what you're talking about, and it will have a little think, and you can even use things like you can say the word full stop or exclamation mark or new line or new paragraph, and it will interpret that and put that in, the appropriate punctuation in for you. So they are tools built into our word processors. There are also generic tools built into Windows itself, and don't worry, Mac users, I am coming on to you shortly. So within Windows, if you press the Windows key on your computer, and then you can go to the settings area here. So settings, and then at the bottom here, well, near to the bottom is the accessibility setting here. So if you click on those accessibility settings, you then get all sorts of different options for setting live captions throughout any videos that you're watching, that sort of thing. So these are hearing items here. There's interactive ones here. So how, if you have a hand tremor, for example, you can see how fast your mouse is going, and you can alter the speeds of that sort of thing if you find that's tricky for you. We then have some vision settings. Now, there's all different things that you can do. The text size throughout everything that you open will then have the larger text size if that's useful for you. If you want your mouse pointer to appear larger or a different color, higher contrast, for example, you can do that here. There's all these different settings that you can explore. I'm just going to give you a quick note of caution on the color filters here. So the color filters, if we went on to click that, this is for specific types of color blindness. So we have red, green color blindness and the different technical names for those here. So this isn't for Erland's visual stress. So it's specific color blindness there. So we don't have built-in Erland's filters within Windows, but I will come on to that in the next section. So if you're not a Windows user, the best thing for you to do is to go to abilitynet.org.uk. So this is something that you might want to take a note of, or when you get the recording from Witherslack later on, you can pause this video so you can then see where to go to. So abilitynet.org.uk, and they have a series of fact sheets called My Computer, My Way. And they have things for phones, iPhones, Android phones, computers, whether it's Macs, PCs, Chromebooks, and also for tablets as well. So when you get onto Abilitynet, so this is what their website looks like, and you need to come across here to the My Computer, My Way section and click here on the My Computer, My Way. So once you've done that, it will give you so many different resources. But one of the good things that it does, it will auto detect the device you're operating on. So you don't need to know whether you are Windows 7, Windows 10, iOS 5, an iPhone whatever, it will auto detect. So whatever you go on, whatever device you're accessing it on, whether it's an iPad, a phone, a Chromebook, it will auto sense that and it will give you the most appropriate resources. And you can then filter by your needs, your symptoms, or your conditions. So you can say, show me everything for dyslexia, show me everything for autism, or by your needs or your symptoms. So you can say, show me everything to make text larger. And you can manually filter for a different operating system. So if you're accessing it from your laptop, but you're actually interested in phone apps for your iPhone, you can then toggle the operating system on and off, but it will auto detect that section for you. Okay, so time tracking and focus. This is something that is going back to those executive functions. It's something that a lot of neurodivergent children and young people will really struggle with. So one of my basic things that I do is to add reminders onto phones. So reminders to do things, set up routines. You may find that your phone has built-in modes and routines. So you can, when you go to a particular place, for example, or particular hours of the day, you can set it to work mode or weekend mode, which will then, auto silence your phone. If you have a young person with ADHD, like I do, they're forever getting told off for forgetting to turn their phone off or forgetting to turn it onto silent when they go into school. So if we have these times and days set up within the different settings, it automatically switches it onto do not disturb mode, either as soon as they enter the building or within the time parameters that we've set. Individual different apps will have settings within them. So this is a screenshot of my phone for Facebook. And I've set quiet mode. So I set quiet mode at bedtimes, and I also set quiet mode during the working week. And this will, if I click on Facebook, as I might do, to save me getting distracted, it brings up this quiet mode. And it's just a little reminder, hang on, you're not supposed to be doing this now, put this away. There are also different settings within parental settings that you can use, things like Google Family Link and so on, where you can actually set times where your child or young person is able to use their phone and certain websites that you trust, for example. I also I'm a big believer in smartwatches. I have a smartwatch myself, and I've given all of my children smartwatches because then we can have a reminder that silently vibrates on their wrist that they can look at so that they are not taking out their phone during the day. So you can set timers, you can set reminders on a smartwatch through calendar functions and that sort of thing, or through different apps, and it will then give a quiet reminder that they've got to go to their violin lesson, for example. Let's not neglect, and these aren't free, so I've snuck these into the free section, but these aren't free. So let's not neglect physical things as well. So physical timers are brilliant. These ones that you have here, as the timer goes down, it physically, the color rotates around, so you can see it's a visual notice, so you don't have to rely on being able to tell the time. So you just say when all the red has gone, that's your time up. I have one of these at home. It does traffic lights, and we can set it, especially when the children were younger, we'd set it to green when they were allowed to use their tablet, for example, and then it would go to amber, and you can change, when it's 5 minutes left, when it's 2 minutes left, and then on to red. Now, these sorts of timers tend to have flashy light alarms and noise. We found the noise quite alarming, so we just used to use it on the visual setting, so the alerting with the color flashing. But it's a really good way if you have a young child who can't tell the time, who doesn't know how long 10 minutes is, having something like this that they can look at is really useful for them. So those were our integrated, our built-in accessibility tools. So our next section that we're going to do is on additional. So these are things that you would download to use. So these extras, but these are all free examples. So the first one, and again, if you're watching this back, this is something that I think everybody should go and get. This is absolutely wonderful. So this is from, it's called My Study Bar, and it's from the University of Edinburgh. And it's through a thing called Call Scotland, which is Communication, Access, Literacy and Learning, Call Scotland, CALL. So it's done by the University of Edinburgh, and it's a thing called My Study Bar. Now, I've labelled it as portable software because you can download it onto your computer, but you can also take it with you on a USB stick. So it doesn't have to be actually put onto the brain of the computer, if you like. It can run quite happily from a USB stick. So you download it either onto your computer or onto the USB stick, and then you can take that with you wherever you go. So if your child or young person is at a school or college where they might be moving from computer room to computer room, they can have that USB stick with them, perhaps attach their lanyard, and they can then plug it in, and this will run quite happily from the USB stick. Now, some schools don't allow USB sticks, so you might have to ask them therefore to network it, so to put this on the network, because as I said right at the beginning, some of these tools are useful to everybody, but they are absolutely, imperative for the learners that we're talking about with neurodivergent challenges. So this is what my study bar looks like when you load it up. It's literally like a little hovering pop-up that looks like this, and we have different tools in here for planning, for reading, for writing, voice typing and reading screen readers, vision, and then there's some extras on the side. I'm not going to take you through every single function that it's got, but I'm going to show you some of them. So if we click on the planning, there is a built-in mind map, which is brilliant. Organizers and sticky notes. So you can have these sticky notes. So if you're a MacBook user, you might use stickies on your desktop all the time. So this stores the sticky notes within the My Study bar. So onto your USB stick if you're running it from a USB stick, or on the computer itself, but within the My Study bar. So mind mapping software completely free, organizational tools, and stickies for sticky notes. If we click on the reading tab, we have all these options, and I'm going to show you some of these options in a little bit more detail in a minute. So we have a screen mask, a view bar, and an overlay. And again, we've got a text reader there if you're looking at something that isn't accessible in another way. There are writing tools, which is a talking word processor. There's Let Me Type, where it brings up like that predictive text like you might have on your mobile phone, but it will bring that up within, Word or Google Docs or whatever you're doing that. And then there's a typing tutor built in as well. If we skip to the end section here, there's all sorts of different things, and there's Scottish digital voices. So you might have noticed in my talk earlier, we had a Welsh accent, we had Irish accent, we had English accent, but the Scottish digital voice was missing. So this is something that my study bar will do. So you have those Scottish digital voices if you prefer that to listen to. So we're going to go now. So this is the smart screen masking. So this is very useful for people who suffer with visual stress. So if you have Erlen syndrome, or again, you may just find this useful yourself. So once we've gone into this, we have all of these different color options. So you can choose any of these colors on here, and then you can adjust it using these sliders to make it slightly different. So these are Erlen's adjacent colors, and you can tweak them to be different. So we then also have a saturation tool, and I'll show you that. And we have line options and bar options. So we'll just click through some of those. So I've added here a line, and you can just see here this line. Okay, so this will show me where I'm up to. So this masks part of the screen. So as I might scroll down that document, it gives me a line to say this is the bit that I'm currently reading, but it's masking above and below that line. I can change the position of the line. I can add 2 lines if I want to show the top and bottom of the line, and I can change the line color. Oh, sorry, one more. I can also, if I click on the bar options here, so this is the bar, I can make this bar taller and shorter. So if you want to just highlight one thing or make it, 2/3 of the screen, that's fine. There's a different reading tool, which is called the view bar. So the view bar here just is like a little cutout window. So this is the equivalent of having those pieces of cardboard that just have that little window available. And again, the settings on here, so you can change the width, the color, the height, all those different settings, and you can this sits as a pop-up above the text. So as you scroll, this will stay still on your screen, and the text underneath will scroll up and down. One of the most useful things if you have Erlands, for example, or dyslexia, or even if you just find a white screen particularly intimidating or visually challenging, this has this option called SS Overlay. And once we use the SS Overlay, this will sit minimized in the little tray at the bottom, and you can apply it, turn it on and off, and this puts a virtual filter over the entire screen. So we have a zoom setting for transparency here, this little slider, so we can make it more or less transparent, and we can choose these different colors. So I've got an example here. So this is the entire screen with the olive filter on with low transparency. So I like the color purple. I thought I was going to enjoy having a purple screen. I don't like having a purple screen. It turns out olive is best for me. So you can experiment as to which is the best color for you. So this is low transparency olive. As we slide the slider up here, you can see that we've got a darker, less transparent. So there's our lower transparency, middle transparency, and we can put that all the way up if you want a more intense color. And we can then change the color itself by using this drop down to change that background color. So that's super useful, and it puts it over the entire screen, which can be wonderful for if you are struggling to remember your physical screen overlays, for example. So that was my study bar. The next one I want to talk about is GoblinDo Tools. So this is AI-powered tools that have been designed by a neurodivergent individual for his neurodivergent friends. This is something that I personally cannot live without. I'm absolutely in love with Goblin Tools. Now, there are lots of different tools available, and I am not affiliated in any way to any of these things that we're recommending. However, I do personally love Goblin Tools. So when you go to GoblinDo Tools, so instead of .com or .co.uk, it's just GoblinDo Tools. So when you go onto here, it's a web version and it's free. You can have a paid version for Android and iOS in an app, but you can still use it on a mobile in the web browser version. So you don't ever have to pay for this, but you can do if you want the app version. So across the top, we've got Magic To Do, Formalizer, Judge, Professor, Estimator, Compiler, and then a chef function at the end. So I'm going to take you through a couple of these ones. So the to-do list is brilliant. So you can add things in. So I'm going to type in tidy my room and press the add button here. So there we go. I've got a to-do, and I've added several more. So I need to bake some cupcakes, revise Pythagoras, and tidy my room. So we can use these tick boxes to tick those items off, and it will cross them out, and we get that satisfaction of having those items ticked off on our screen. However, the thing that really makes this friendly to neurodivergent brains is this magic wand function. So if you think, well, I don't know how to tidy my room, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just sat here, the whole room's a mess, I do not know what to do, we can use this magic wand function, and that will break down the item into simpler steps. Now we have some level of spiciness here, so you can have the more chili peppers you see, the more detail that will go into. So here we go, I've done the magic wand, and it will tell me to gather cleaning supplies, and it is very American, so it will say trash rather than rubbish. Put rubbish in the bin, put things where they go, set aside things that need to be discarded or donated. I'm not sure what that means. So again, I can use this magic wand, and it will then do all those subtasks in there as well. So if you've got a young person or a child who says, well, I don't know how to write an essay on Henry VIII, I don't know how to do this, it will give them those steps auto-generated in language that they can understand. At the side of them, so we have our magic wand tool, at the side of them there's this little 3 dots. You can estimate roughly how long it's going to take you. This is brilliant for time blindness. If you struggle with knowing how long things take, that is a brilliant thing to do. There's also the judge tool, which is if you find it difficult to judge the particular tone. So that may be if you're autistic, for example. So I quite often think, okay, is this person cross with me, or are they just being very formal? So you can cut and paste text in there, press the judge button, and it will tell you what the emotional tone is. So what's the tone of this particular text? I also will use it when I'm writing emails and things. So I'll put things that I've written and judge it to see how I'm coming across. There's also the formalizer, where you can put something in here, and you can see it, the section here where it says make my text. There's lots of different options here. You can make it more professional, more technical, more accessible, easier to read, more sociable, add in some waffle, more to the point, unwaffle it. So again, something you can have a play with. This is an interesting one, probably for the parents rather than the children and the young people. The chef, you can put in here what ingredients you've got, any dietary complaints, that sort of thing, and it will suggest to you what you should cook for tea. So if you think you're stuck having the same old meals, you might find this one really useful. There's also in here the professor, which will explain things to you in simple terms, the estimator, which will tell you how long it thinks something is going to take, and the compiler, where you can do what I would call a brain dump, just putting all of the information in your head down onto a screen, and it will create that into a to-do list for you. Speaking of to-do lists, so that's one that's there. There's also Todoist, Remember the Milk, Notes apps, lots of different to-do lists. I'm going to very briefly touch on Google Keep. Again, it's completely free, just because I find some of the features on it very useful. So it looks like post-it notes, and you can have the to-do lists on here. But some of the features that I really like, so this was a packing list that I shared with my teenagers when we were going on holiday. So these are the things that they needed to take with them, so that I wasn't packing for them, they were packing for themselves. So we've got options down here. We can change the colors, we can add pictures, we can do all sorts of things there. But as we tick them off, they cross out, but they don't disappear. So that means that when we were on holiday, when they were coming home, they could simply uncheck these. So they popped up to the top, and it helped them to pack forwards and backwards, if you like. You can also add in a collaborator. So I made one list and I duplicated it 4 times for my husband and my 3 children. I then added each of them to the duplicate lists, one for my son, one for my eldest daughter, and so on. And I added them in so they could tick off their items and I could see that they'd done it, and that was brilliant. I also like the reminder function on Google Keep. So the reminder function allows you to set times and days, but also to pick a place. Now, if you're like me, things are running behind and you think, oh my goodness, I knew I had a reminder, but it's gone now. You can pick a place. So I can pick a place in with it, as long as it's within Google, or I can add a postcode, for example, for our home. So when I get home, remind me to pack a lunch for tomorrow. When I go to the supermarket, remind me to pick up milk, for example. So I find that really useful. So a lot of phones have this built in, the Lists app, and linking those up to either your phone or your smartwatch to give those reminders is super useful. Now, one brilliant thing that you can do for your child or young person who is neurodivergent is to help them to learn to type. A lot of the exam access arrangements, when you go later on in education in college or in high school, for example, some exam access arrangements can be using a word processor, so typing answers rather than writing. That's quite a common accommodation for neurodivergency. So if you can help them learn to type, that is brilliant. So there's lots of paid things out there, but here are 2 free ones that you might be interested in. So our first one here is Dance Mat Typing, which is on the BBC. So Dance Mat Typing, it is aimed very much at younger learners. I personally find it quite annoying, but if you've got a primary school age child, absolutely have at it. So they have these characters and it takes you through sort of cartoon style little videos to watch, and it's really brilliant. This is what the screen will actually look like, and it shows you which color and that sort of thing. If you have an older child or young person, typing.com is brilliant. This is what it looks like. And if you go to the students area and typing lessons, there's tests, but there's also games on here as well. So again, you will want to change to the UK settings at the top here. And that will give you UK spellings, but also the UK keyboard layout, because international keyboards are laid out slightly differently. So make sure you're on the UK settings, and this is what some of the tutorials will look like. And then there's lots of these games. These games are amazing. So we have based on Fruit Ninja, there's zombie ones, there's ring toss, there's popping balloons, there's all sorts of different ones that you can go on, race games. So really, really good for getting that practice up. So those are our additional, so things that you have to download or websites that you have to go to. So I'm going to cover now some specialist things. So these are premium, specifically designed, but they do have a cost associated with them. So visual timetables, a lot of the calendar apps that come free with whatever computer or phone that you're using are brilliant. There are plenty of paid apps that will do all sorts of different functions for you that are largely irrelevant to school and college age children. I will mention one which is called Timo. So Timo is something that I've used myself. So we don't have any particular affiliation with this with the ADHD Foundation, but this is something that I've used with my own family. The reason that I like this one is the ability to have it on your phone, on the desktop, and on a smartwatch. And the smartwatch, if you can see this sort of, it has like a picture that you can change, an icon, so you can have a photograph or you can have an icon for lunch or PE or maths or whatever it is. And this ring, if you can see this sort of ring here, when it is full up, it is the end of the session. So you can see that visual display, because a lot of the timetables, calendar apps, visual reminders will show you how many minutes left or show you on a clock, whereas this, because it does say 13 minutes left, but it will show you when that time is halfway done, it will be half full. When it's 3/4 done, it will be 3/4 full. So it automatically resets that circle to be a full thing. And it doesn't need to keep syncing with your phone. So we provided our very young daughter, when she was in primary school, she really struggled with how long things were going to take. So we would sync it with the phone in the morning, and then she could go off for the entire rest of the day, not needing to have a phone anywhere near it, and it would auto tell her, how long of morning lessons until break, for example, how long of lunch she had left, how long she had to eat, how long she had to play, that sort of things. So they're visual timetables. There are lots of different, what I'm going to refer to as calming apps. So Headspace and Brain in Hand are two of them. So Headspace is a paid app. Educators can get it for free. So you might want to ask in school or college if they can use it in school, because the teachers, TAs, anybody who has a school email can actually sign up for a free account to Headspace. But I'm mentioning it because if you already have a Netflix subscription, they have this thing called Headspace Unwind Your Mind, which works via your Netflix subscription. So if you already have that, don't go out and get Netflix specially. But if you already have that and you go into the search option, search for Headspace, and there's these brilliant guided relaxation sessions that are really very good. So Brain in Hand is very expensive, but it has been funded through EHCPs or DSA. So EHCP would be Educational Healthcare Plan, or DSA, which is Disabled Students Allowance for college or university students. And it can also be funded depending on your local authority. So some local authorities have signed up to this and can access it. You can be prescribed it through your GP. But the thing that I really like about Brain in Hand is that not only does it have all these resources that you can click on, but it also has actual live human support. So 24/7, you can press a little button if you are becoming overwhelmed and panicky, and you can physically talk to an operator any hour of any day, which is why it's so expensive. Now, there are lots of newer AI-based apps that will do this chat function, but with an AI robot, if you like. I am a little bit wary of those, especially if you can chat to other users, or the AI generated coaching is a little bit of a red flag to me, because I think AI is wonderful, but there's no guarantee that the advice generated will be good. So you have to just take it with a pinch of salt. So Brain in Hand is amazing. It's recommended usually for ages 14 and over. And it will help you with calming strategies. So it suggests here, do breathing exercises, watch a video. So if you're becoming overwhelmed, it will suggest things for you, but you do have that human being support as well. So there's some physical devices. So reader devices, you may have come across, if you have a dyslexic young person in high school, they might be using a thing called a C-Pen reader. So this, you can look at it here, it scans along the text and it will read it out either out loud or you can link it to headphones and it will read it into your headphones. If you use hearing aids, you can link it directly to your hearing aids as well, which is quite good. So it links via Bluetooth to headphones or hearing aids if you have that Bluetooth functionality in your hearing aids. So there is a regular CPEN that you can look up the meanings of words, but there is an exam one. So this one is the exam reader. So many schools and colleges will have a couple of these that they loan out to dyslexic students, for example, and they will have the version that connects to the internet and can look up the definitions of words for them to use in their everyday lessons. And then they will have a set one of these exam versions that all it will do is read. It doesn't connect to the internet at all, so it can't be used, nefariously in exams, if you like. Other ones are this all can read. So this is something where you point the camera at the page. So with the C pen, you have to stroke it across the page one line at a time, which can be tricky if you've got manual dexterity issues. So this will scan the whole page at once and read it all for you. And these are obviously more expensive. And then we go all the way up to this one, which is called the My Eye. And again, these are incredibly expensive, but this one is voice activated. It clicks onto the side of your glasses and whatever you are looking at. So it will read jars, for example, ingredients on things. It will read signs at train stations. Whatever you're looking at, it will read out for you. So those are our specialists, and they are all premium costs, unfortunately. So I'm going to give you some resources now. So these are from Call Scotland, which we had before, which was the University of Edinburgh. They have these things called app wheels. And if you go to callscotland.org.uk, and you can click on their downloads, posters and leaflets, and they have these app wheels for Android, for Chrome, for iPad, all different sorts. So I'll see if I can magnify this a second. So let's see if we can zoom in. So we have all of these different apps, and if you download this from their website, you can then click, this is just a photograph of it, but you can click on any of these and it will take it to you. So things like Remember the Milk that I was talking about, and you'll see in this middle section here, it will tell you this is for text to speech, this is for scanning, this is visual stress. So all of these different apps are listed there. That they are all Android apps. We can also have Chrome apps, and again, linked to organization, reading to sport, text to speech, all those different sections. iPad apps, again, filtered. And then here's some for dyscalculia, so people that need greater help with numbers, and it's again split into estimation and rounding, fractions, time, money. All of those things are available. I absolutely urge you to go onto those and download those. And the main take-home message really is to collaborate with school or college. So ask them what works in school and college. Ask them what they use. See if you can get copies or versions of their software to use yourself, but also tell them what works at home. If visual schedules are amazing for you, ask them if they can continue using those same programs, those same apps in school. A lot of those ones that were free, schools should have no problem in using those. So here's some references. I'm not going to read those out. If you are watching this back, you can pause the screen to look at some of those. And that was Neurodiversity and Technology, the Tools for Success. So there's my email. I'll put that up again at the end, but I'm going to hand back over now to Witherslack for the Q&A. I'm hoping people might have put some things in the chat.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Thank you so much, Laura. There's so much information there. So we've had loads of feedback coming in already to say how useful it's all been and asking if they're sending the slides out. So yeah, really good stuff. So yeah, we've had loads of questions coming in. So the first one is, are there any strategies / technology-based help to assist with working memory issues? My child has their SAT next year and he's really struggling with working memory and processing information. They like to hear questions out loud, but this can't be done for tests like English.
Right, okay, for this one, I would speak to school because you've got time. It's not until next year. I would speak to school and ask them about reasonable adjustments. High schools and colleges are much better at this sort of thing than primary schools are, because they are very used to, GCSEs, A levels, BTECs, all those different types of qualifications, and putting help and support in place for those. Primary schools may not be aware of all the things that they could offer. So if, for example, there is a need for somebody to hear something read out, it is perfectly reasonable to ask if a teaching assistant or a teacher could take that child on a one-to-one in a separate room, for example, and read those questions out, or if they could fund something like that, or the CPEN reader. So if the child could scan that across and do that. Also ask them about what reasonable adjustments are in place. If they're struggling with processing speeds, they may, but you would have to check with school, they may be allowed extra time. I'm not sure if that's the case for SATs. That's something that you would have to check, but it might be that having that extra time to process the questions and the answers may well help. But ask them what they can do to support your child. And hopefully they will be open to suggestions.
Yeah, great answer. Thanks, Laura. The next question is, my son is 7 and has autism, ADHD and dyspraxia. His handwriting is beautiful and age appropriate at home, but whilst at school they say his writing is below his chronological age, often refuses to write and complete work. They say he just needs to build resilience and keep trying. Do you think I can ask for alternative methods of completing his work?
Absolutely. If your child has a diagnosis, you can absolutely go to school and say, what are you doing to support my child? What reasonable adjustments are you putting in place? I myself have a ADHD, autistic and dyspraxic child who every single parents' evening, the feedback is scruffy books, tricky to read handwriting, and it's the speed. So she can either write neatly or she can write quickly. So that might be the case with this particular child at home. They're doing brilliant handwriting, but in school, when everything is rushed, when you have to, there's really tight times on things, that neatness goes out of the window because of that DCD, because of the dyspraxia. So a reasonable adjustment could be using a laptop and typing if they're good at typing, and you can use those typing tools to get better and quicker at typing. Or it could even be to use some of the speech to text. Now, there are things called whisper phones where it's almost like a phone that you hold up to your ear and you can talk very, very quietly into it. So you're not disturbing the whole rest of the class, because some of these obviously speech to text, if you're saying it out loud, you might be disturbing learners around and about you. But if they had one of these whisper phones or something like a headset where they can actually talk very quietly, and a laptop or an iPad or something could pick up that sound, that may well be an option as well.
Great, thanks very much. Next question is, I have undiagnosed ADHD. This is from a parent, so parent support. I'm waiting for my access to work recommendations to be signed off. I have to take notes throughout meetings. Is there anything I can access through my laptop before I'm given my scribe?
Yes, so the recommendations will be different depending on whether it's in-person meetings or virtual meetings, like on Zoom or Teams or Google Meet or something like that. A lot of, if it's an online meeting, there's usually settings within there that can take transcription, and it will record who's speaking and who's doing that. Access to Work will have hopefully identified recording devices and things, like there's specialist software called Glean, and there's lots of different things where you can take meeting notes and it will use AI to sort of summarize the meeting for you, all sorts of things like that. If it is in person, I would suggest, if you're happy with this, in the meantime, you can use any mobile phone to take recordings. So if you use mobile phone and do like a voice note, for example, on whatever apps you've got, or using any of those, even opening up something like Google Docs or a Word document and using that dictate function in there to just record the words that are said, but then obviously you will then have to sort that out into something meaningful, because it will also record and note down all of the things, all of the ums, all of the I means, whereas the more advanced versions that you can get through Access to Work will use AI to sort that into something more usable. So there are ways, but I would suggest if you are going to do that, you need to make every person in that room aware that you're recording the session, because that's the sort of thing that can get into issues, for example. So, and many workplaces would not want you to record it on your own mobile phone, for example. But if you had a work phone and you said to your boss, would I be able to record this onto this particular app on my work phone, and it'll save it to our company, whatever. You might also see if your company has any video conferencing facilities. So if they have that sort of like a meeting room that has a central speaker, you can pretend you're in a virtual conference without actually being in one, and use the microphones in the room to actually pick up all of those different speakers. But you should be able to do something in the very short term on your mobile phone, but do make sure you've got permission from everybody and that everybody understands that you're recording it, and it's up to you whether you say why you're recording it or not. So you could just say, I'd like to record this meeting. Is everybody all right with that? Does anybody object to that? And that's all you need to say. However, if you would like to, you could say, I'd like to record this meeting because I struggle to listen and take notes, or I struggle to keep all the things because of my ADHD. And that's entirely your information to choose to share or not. But it might make people more likely to say yes to allowing you to record if they know that there is a reason behind it. But again, that's a real tightrope that you may or may not want to work, depending on your work environment, whether you're dealing with public or clients, or whether it's an internal meeting, for example.
Yeah, brilliant, thanks. And one parent's just said there's for the person asking about the scribe, there's also a free transcription option while they wait, called Fathom and Otter.ai.
Yes, Otter.ai, yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. And next question is, while the Goblin tool looks amazing, do you know if this can be printed and used for a young person who's too young for a phone? They're 9 years old.
Yeah, there's if you are looking for things that do not go onto a phone, I would suggest different types of visual schedules. I'm trying to think just off the top of my head the name of the one that we used at home, and I can't. Can I research this after, and I will send the link to it to Witherslack to send out with the slides? Is that all right?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Because I used a thing with my own children. The name just escapes me at the moment, but it's almost like a standard. It's about the size of a ruler. So I don't know, maybe 20 centimeters ish. And it has these little physical plastic buttons with icons on that have, you can put on, PE, a picture of PE kit, math, lunch, whatever. And they are physical little plastic things that sit within this sort of key ring. So as one finishes, you then turn it over and you know what the next thing is. So that's really good for my youngest child, for example. She really struggled with, if the teacher said, right, we're doing maths and then English and then we're going swimming after lunch, she would go, oh, swimming, brilliant, we're going swimming, because that was the last thing that she heard, and she hadn't heard that they had to do maths and English and then lunch and then swimming. So having these they're almost like little plastic buttons that click in, and they have a nice sensory effect the way where you can turn them and click them to and you can also then swap them around. So if the teacher, for example, says, okay, we're not doing maths this morning straight away, we're going to actually go to an assembly, the teacher or TA or whoever's in the room can change that for a different symbol. We found them so useful. I will look them up and send that to Witherslack to send out with a presentation.